What started out as a quiet term at the Supreme Court is getting busier and busier. The justices have agreed to take up a case centered around religious exemptions. It involves Catholic Charities at the Diocese of Superior, Wisconsin, and its work to serve people who are poor, elderly, or have disabilities. Wisconsin law allows religious groups to be exempt from state unemployment taxes as long as their activities are religious. State officials determined that Catholic Charities services are not inherently religious and therefore do not qualify for the tax exemption. In March, the Wisconsin Supreme Court weighed in and agreed the charity's activities of serving the poor are secular in nature. The court said Catholic Charities and its sub-entities neither attempt to imbue the program participants with the Catholic faith nor supply any religious materials to program participants or employees. The Becket Fund for Religious Liberty is defending Catholic Charities at the High Court. Attorney Nick Reeves says the case's impact could go well beyond the Catholic Church in Wisconsin.
And we think this is actually very important to a lot of Catholic charities around the country. Wisconsin has this law, but lots of other states have very similar laws too. And so this would apply to other Catholic ministries and actually a lot of religious minority ministries around the country that similarly might do things that are not typically or maybe traditionally considered religious, but are still very important and religious to that community.
To provide more insight on this case and the work of Catholic Charities in Wisconsin, we're joined now by the head of the Diocese of Superior, Bishop James Powers. Your Excellency, thank you for joining us. First, can you speak to, has Catholic Charities in Superior, Wisconsin contributed to the Catholic mission of your diocese, and if so, how?
Oh, absolutely it has. Catholic Charities Bureau, Diocese of Superior, was established back in 1917, just shortly after the diocese had been formed. And since that time, it's reached out to try to help anybody who's in need, not just, Catholic or, but anybody, everybody reaching out to, disabled. And as such, if it weren't for Catholic Charities, I don't know how we as a diocese would begin to try to fulfill that mission of, charity, of caring for the least ones.
And as you said, it has a rich, more than 100-year history in your diocese.
Right.
Your Excellency, the Wisconsin Supreme Court ruled in March that, as I mentioned, Catholic Charities activities are not typical religious activities.
Right.
But is service to the poor an important tenet of our Catholic faith?
Oh, absolutely it is. It's part of the foundation of our faith. Go back to scriptures. How many times does Christ in the Gospels call us to reach out to the least ones, to help those in need? For the entire history of social teaching and of the Catholic Church, that service to the poor, and without discrimination, without proselytizing, we're forbidden by the documents of the Church to discriminate on those two specifically causes.
Yes, I just want to emphasize that point that you just made and reiterate that to clarify, as Catholics, we are not called to serve just people who are Catholic. We are called to serve everyone, no matter their religious background, correct? We don't have to convert someone to serve them.
Right, absolutely, yeah.
And Your Excellency, is the Church better equipped to serve people than the state is equipped to serve people?
I certainly believe it is. Again, where the Catholic Charities is hands-on, their feet on the ground. We know our people. We know the needs, and we're better. That compassion is so important when reaching out as well.
Can you speak to, this aspect of church teaching of subsidiarity? of the role that we have in attending to those who are close to us?
Well, yeah, it's certainly part of the social teaching. An important part of the social teaching is that, you know, the closest point of contact is the best point of contact, and so as the church throughout the diocese, yeah, rather than, you know, trying to depend on the state or government to determine the needs, you know, to be able to supply those needs.
On that note, are you concerned about the courts probing into how, quote, religious a ministry is? Isn't that a profoundly religious question?
Well, absolutely. I think that's, you know, the real issue. You know, is the court competent to determine whether or not our activities, our mission as church in the Diocese of Superior is religious or not? Absolutely, it's religious. You know, and again, it's founded on all the principles of our Catholic social teaching, and it's certainly founded on the commands of Jesus. You know, those two great commands to, you know, love God with all that we are, but to love our neighbor as ourselves, and that loving of neighbor demands that we reach out in charity to help those that are less fortunate, those that are in need of help, and, you know, to do that in person, how important that is.
And finally, Your Excellency, is this a case that you think other Catholic bishops and other religious leaders, for that matter, should be paying attention to? Could this ultimately affect them and their ministries as well?
Well, definitely. I think it's one that we all have to be aware of, because if the state of Wisconsin can do this, what's to prevent other states from doing it as well? And where do we stop? You know, and when we're told that we have to deny who we are in order to claim to be religious, how can we, as Catholics, really fulfill our mission as the Catholic Church in the Diocese of Superior or wherever? You know, the sacramental part of the church is important. There's no question about that. But out of that sacramental life of the church comes that call to mission. And to split them, we're just denying who we are.
Well, we will be keeping a close eye on the Supreme Court and this case. Bishop Powers, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. God bless.